Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to now what is, I believe, the third round of the FRO Intermediate A Championship at Formula Racing League, as we do head on to the British track, as Brands Hatch is also racing here British GT this weekend, I believe. So quite a bit going on at Brands Hatch, as well as obviously the rookie server and the pros and masters servers all being on at the same time. So there's a lot of action at this track as usual. We do see it is around the same amount of people we did see last time, at around, I believe, 20 odd drivers. We do see so far in terms of qualifying, we do see the best time so far is a 123.797, so it is creeping down those lap times so far. As we can see, between P1 and P2 there is a very small gap, as about, well, should we say 300th of a second or so between them both, followed then by Trambaglio and P3 with just under a tenth between them three. So a tenth between them both is actually quite miraculous around the track like this. Obviously there aren't as many drivers as we would usually see, as it went from, I believe, 30 so drivers, but unfortunately that is usually what happens. So you see now Trambaglio going on to set a new fastest lap, could potentially take pole position by quite a mile if he's able to set this lap valid as he goes around the final corner. Going on to start finish straight now to go on to do a 123.637, which is a whopping tenth and a half off what we saw Chibel in the 72 McLaren 720S Evo set. Going further down as well, we do see what is Bijan Weiser in at that Bentley, the only Bentley we actually see on the grid. I think this championship, I believe, getting a bit of an understeer and oversteer moment at the same time. Now going into the final few corners of Sector 1. Sector 2 and 3. Loses a lot of time because of that oversteer moment. As we now see Daniel Trambaglio actually setting another potentially faster lap time than we did see him do earlier. Only with 123.6 as we witnessed him do last lap. Now on for a low 23.5, I believe, if he's able to maintain this lap time. But it does seem he makes a tiny bit of mistake going through into the final few corners of Sector 2 and going into Sector 3. Only 3 corners averaged per sector, so obviously quite a small track, but also quite narrow. Most British tracks are, apart from Silverstone. What's happened now? I'm not sure what just happened. Apparently stream disconnected. I hope it's still running. Is it still running? I hope it is. We'll quickly check if it is still running. Hopefully it is. It seems we are still running. That's brilliant. Alright, we continue on with qualifying now, as we do see now Poulin was able to actually take away Daniel Trambaglio's fastest lap time with 123.6, so still very close between the top two so far. Can the Team IRS driver actually set a faster lap time? At the moment he is on for a 123.4, but 2 tenths up currently. But might lose it. He's only gone into Sector 2 now. Still has some of the worst corners to do coming up. Now that corner being probably one of the most technical on this track. Very difficult to get right, but we also do see the fast right-handers going into Sector 3. Also being quite a confidence key corner. Going into one of them in a minute. Now it does seem he does go quite wide there. I'm not sure if that is still going to be a valid lap time. It does seem he is messed up there. The first of the right-handers going into Sector 3, and he's going to pull over to the side there. That isn't going to be able to extend his lap for the lead at all. But we do also now see what is going to be Bartek in the Scuderia Ferrari 296 going through into Sector 2 now. Actually about 2 tenths up, so could actually potentially take pole position here for himself. Now going into turn 4. Lost quite a bit of time now, unfortunately, on the exit of it. Can he gain it back going into the final few corners? Now, 2 confident corners. Yeah, it does take it quite nicely so far. Takes a lot of the inside line. There needs to be very careful of not taking it invalid. Does lose a bit of his lap time now. Flatlining green delta at the moment. Can he continue? Is he? No, he does not. He spins. There's a perfect pirouette there. You need no. Oh my god, that was close for the other car as well. Nearly a 720 degree pirouette, but manages to stay out of the way of traffic, and he's going to have to try again. We have only got 4 minutes qualifying left. Obviously, this being one of the shorter tracks, it's probably about 2.5 laps, depending on the positioning you are currently on track. We do actually see Daniel Trambaglio once again improving quite a bit. Currently 2.5 temps up on his first best lap time. Go into now some of the final corners of Sector 3. One more corner to do. And to get this one nailed to actually gain any more time, as he's still fluctuating between 2.5 temps. Goes through the final corner. Does take it absolutely using all of the outside line of the track there as he goes across the line to take pole position with 123.4. So again, very, very close there to the low 23s, potentially even the 22s, but I don't think we have enough time to see that take place. Going further down on the grid then, we do see Eckering, who is on for a faster lap time going through the final corner as well. About 4 attempts up in his first best lap time will be able to put him quite significantly higher up in the order. Goes across the start-finish line now to take what is going to be P5 though with 123.6, so a 5-place improvement there provisionally at the moment for him going up into P5. We do see that is going to be the Ferrari 296, I believe. I'm not actually sure who that is, just unfortunately going too wide, going into turn 1, difficult corner to do. But if you're able to do it well, you can actually improve and reward yourself quite significantly, as we do see now Weezer in P6, who is on for a faster lap time, but we do see he might not be too lucky with traffic here. We do see we have the Aston Martin, of all I can believe that is Eckland, and then we also see that it's got to be potentially, well, no, that's got to be him, unfortunately invalidating his lap, and that's going to lose him all of his delta either way, so he's going to have to try push going on to the next lap, as we do see the track has gone to an optimum state now. It does seem Weezer struggling there to keep it on track there, so he's just going to have to pull over and potentially try to get, I know he's going to continue going. I'm not sure if that's the right answer there, to be honest, but if it works for him, it works. But does he pull over? No, he doesn't. He just lets more traffic by here. So you now see Jeremy Gore in that BMW M4, currently 1.1 seconds off the leader's pace in P13 with a 124.392. Looking to improve, but he needs to actually get in about 2 tenths or so to be able to go up a position into P12. So there's a bit of a gap between them both there, but he isn't going to be able to do that so far. He's not going to be able to deliver that lap time. In fact, he flatlines the green delta at the end of it, as well as we do now see Jim Emanuelson going into turn 3. You see, we do, that is going to be the BMW M4, I believe. That might be Ray's in the Row Motorsports livery in front of him. There still seems to be quite a big gap between them both, so hopefully that doesn't affect both drivers. We also see that, I think there was Weezer behind him as well. I did see blue, but I didn't see what car it was. It goes wide. Is it going to still be valid? Loses a lot of his time now, unfortunately, and I think that is going to be him having to rush back to the line now to at least try to set one more lap time. And I think he might be able to do one more, well, he will be able to do one more lap time, but he might be able to do 2 if he can get back in time. I don't think he will be able to get back in time. In fact, by the state of this lap, he might be lucky. So yeah, there we go. We do see Kenneth Reyes there in that Row Motorsports. About 5 tenths of his first best lap time, goes up into P10 now with 123.9, just breaking into the 23 boundaries there. At the moment, we'd see all the way up into P13 of Jim Emanuelson, all in within a tenth, within a second, sorry, of the leader's lap time there. And further down as well, we do see that it's going to be Bassari rushing across the line. He does have a tiny bit of a slipstream help there from what is going to be the other Bentley of Van Loo. He comes across the line to try and improve his lap time. He goes up into P6 over 123.645, being his fastest lap time of the day so far compared to his free practice times. As well as now we do see Weezer going into Sector 3, the most technical sector at Brands Hatch, getting a bit wide going into the final corner. We do see there is a car slow there. Is that going to off-perm? It does seem he returns to the garage in time. Does lose about 2 temps going through the first corner. It does seem he nearly went on the grass there and then he spun his car out. But it does seem he was able to push through. Now going through the penultimate corner, he's still about 1.5 up on his first best lap time. Has lost about 3 tenths though. Can he gain anything going into the final corner? Yes, he can. Can he maintain that though? At the moment, he might be able to, and he goes across the goes across the start-finish line to set P3 there, going all the way from P8 to P3 with a 23.485 there, and that's going to be his final lap time of the day. So it's Craig Hill there. As we do see, that's going to be back markers Motorsport. Now being able to be about 4 tenths up on his best lap time. We'll actually put him up into at least P10 if he's able to maintain this. Going into the final few corners of Sector 2. Going into Sector 3. I also do want to apologise if my voice sounds a bit croaky. I am still quite ill, so hopefully it doesn't sound too noticeable on stream. And I'm also using some new equipment, so it might sound a bit different as well. Hopefully it doesn't sound that much different. Do you see Craig Hill practicing his pit entry there? But that would have been faster lap time there for him, but it looks like he wasn't able to actually improve his final lap times. We only see 2 other cars coming in now, as that's going to be the end of qualifying there. Very short qualifying, to say the least. As in terms of what we see for the rest of the calendar here, as we do see next week Monza for the 90-minute race, marking about the halfway, and in fact the halfway point of this entire calendar. Next week, followed then by Donington for a 60-minute race, followed then by the 2 Americas tracks of Corsa for round 6 and 7. And then we do see the final round being Nordschleife before that 90-minute race. So still quite a good calendar left to do. That Monza race being next, technically classed as a mini endurance race. But we do go on to try and do what is going to be hopefully quite an easy track walk for us. Because not having as many cars as we usually do, and hopefully some of these names being able to be pronounced by me, because I'm very bad when it comes to European names, as I've found out quite a few times. Now, as we do see in the lead so far, we do see it's going to be Daniel Trambaglio, then followed by Jamie Edwards in P2 in that Ferrari 296. Then taking the top 3 is going to be Weezer in the 426 Bentley Continental GT3. As well, followed then by Rudderswicks in the 23 Ferrari 296 GT3, followed then by Chabelle in the 72 McLaren 720S Evo, followed then by the a very domination part of the grids of Ferraris, is the first Ferrari being Poulin, the second being Bassari taking P7, followed then by Sarah Leah, Eckering, and then Munich rounding out the top 10, all from about, what do you see, that's going to be 5 Ferraris there, followed then as well, taking P11 is going to be Kenneth Reyes in the 75 BMW M4, followed then by Griffiths and Craig Hill, all in the BMW M4 as well, followed then by Emmanuelson, and then we do see Gore as well, rounding out the top 15 in that BMW M4, followed then by Reynolds in the Porsche 992, followed then by Mickey Taylor in the 197 McLaren 720S Evo, and followed by 9 of the Mercedes of Redhead, followed then by Audsley, Van Loo in the Bentley Continental, then last but not least it's going to be Eklund in the number 2. You can already see how major the banking actually is on this track. This is me with a fully straight camera actually, and you can just see how banked this track actually is. It doesn't look that bad, I don't believe, on stream, but it is actually major how big that banking actually is, as we get ready to go green now. We do see now the cars just coming down on the jacks, getting ready to go for the formation lap for round 3 of this 8-round season. You see, should start seeing the cars going green now. Daniel Trambaglio taking pole position, leading the formation up. But how long can he actually keep leading the race for? He has had a few bad races before in the previous seasons, but can he maintain his pole position and try to take the win for round 4? Or will we see one of the other drivers, potentially even the top 3, or even we could see a complete change in grid order throughout the race, take a win for tonight's race? We'll have to see in an hour's time, more or less. You see, in terms of track temperature at the moment, only being 15-degree track, it is the colder track side of it. It's still relatively warm, so it shouldn't make that big of an impact. But with that mandatory tyre, well, not mandatory, it's mandatory pit of fuel, I believe, with a 25 seconds fixed time in pits, I believe it is. If I'm got that correct, it is going to be, is it worth hassling that extra 5 seconds to actually go for the tires, or do you just stay with the fuel, which is obviously a minimum of 1 litre, but with that fixed time of 25 seconds, you may as well probably split that tank half and half. But as we do see how narrow this track actually is, you can barely fit 2 cars side by side yet. We go through now the final few corners before we go green, as our current drivers in the top 3, Daniel Trambaglu taking P1, followed them by Jamie Edwards in the Ferrari 296 GT3, followed them by Weezer in the Bentley Continental GT3. So top 3 being completely different manufacturers and completely different strengths in different areas. The McLaren being very good in the corners, having the better aero compared to the Bentley, where they can take a lot more curves and can be a bit more abused. Do you see how fragile the Ferrari can actually be? And the same with the McLaren or any of those back-end cars. Do now go side by side, getting ready to go green here for round 3 at Brands Hatch for the Intermediate A series, as we already see how close they are getting ready to go green. But we do see it's Daniel Trambaglu being able to take the inside line, go into the first corner. Huge advantage on a track like this. Do you see Jamie Edwards having the Ferrari 296 and probably lighter fuel, I'd assume, as we do go green, as we do see now crew chief being able to see that, as we do see Daniel Trambaglu actually getting quite a good start there, being able to hug the inside line going into turn 1, easily takes pole position as we go further down, as we do see Chabel trying to make moves turn early into this race, but it does seem he's going to go side by side with the Ferrari there. I'll put in to try save his position at P5. Go into turn 2, he is going to be able to save it, but we do see he actually breaks a bit later there, pulling going into turn 3. There's going to be contact between them both. That's going to be Chabel going off the track. That's going to lose him a few. What has happened there? I'm not sure what has happened further down the track. I can't actually see who it is, but he went massively off track there, as it does seem. Now we go on board with Kenneth Rees, currently all over the rear of Bassari in the 102 Ferrari 296. Now they go side by side going in to the back straight. He is going to take the outside line going into turn 5 and 6. He tries to get the switch back. It does seem to work going into turn 6 and 7. Can he keep it though, as it's a very difficult corner to do? It does seem the Ferrari goes a bit wide there of Bassari, but we do see now Kenneth Rees being able to be all over behind him, all over the rear of him. Do you see that? It's also going to be the McLaren, I believe. What's going to be Chabel making a tiny bit of contact there with what is going to be Redwick's, as it does seem. Now he stays ahead there. Now Chabel going back up into P5. It's going to be him leading this. He can already see how the pace diversity actually is in this grid. It's with P1 and P2 storming off of each other already, as we do see Weezer actually putting so much pressure here on Daniel Trambaglu, as we have seen Jamie Edwards leaving the scene a bit. So there's going to be a lunge there from Weezer as they make a tiny bit of contact between them both, and that's going to lose them quite a bit of time to the field behind them. It doesn't seem Daniel Trambaglu is going to be very happy with that. A bit of a flashing of the lights situation there for him, as we do see there is that echoing off as what has happened there. That is a huge amount of impact to the front of that Ferrari. Going into turn 1, is it going to be a turn 2 scenario? He just forgets to brake. Whoa, what happened there? That's going to be, well, that's a humongous contact there. That's about 5 cars off in the same corner. I can't actually see who it is, so we're actually going to get and see what happens again. It does seem he loses it with a Ferrari 296 behind him, and he goes straight in. He has to try and hold his brakes, flings another 2 cars off with him, and that is probably one of the more serious incidents we have actually seen during this entire race, and that is going to lead him to go back to the pits. I'm not sure if he's going to be continuing this race, being the first DNF in today's race. If he does come out back into pits, well, come out of pits again, we'll have to find out later. But at the moment, it does seem he stays in. As we go further up as well, we do see now Weezer actually starting to create a tiny bit of a gap between him and Daniel Trambaglu. terms of the best lap times, Weezer still being able to steal the purple lap of a 124.572, but it has just been stolen there by Chevelle for 123.8. Taron trying to get through the order as quickly as they can before Weezer and Daniel Trambaglio lose gap between each other, but we do now see that is going to be Poulin under a bit of pressure, I believe, from Chevelle. We're going into turn 4, one of the more risky corners of having to brake, and taking many different lines can be taken through this corner. Does seem all of them take the right line for it. Does seem there's actually going to be a tiny bit of rowdiness here from Jamie Edwards, and that's also going to be Poulin as well, so they just need to be careful here of how much they actually battle between each other, because the amount of time they're going to lose between is actually going to let Taron catch up significantly as he lunges for the inside line. They're going into turn 6 and 7. He gets the move done quite efficiently there, Poulin going up into P3 now. So we do see there was still too much battle for these two cars to be able to head on. So we do see there's actually going to be another spin here from Taron. Taron just taking way too much of the inside curve. They're going into turn 7. That's going to cause him, unfortunately, to spin out and lose all of those positions he did just gain. Now going down into P12 there, unfortunately there for him. So as we go further down, now he will be able to gain back these positions. Still 55 minutes left to go with this race. So still plenty of time to be able to do anything. Jamie Edwards now going once again, trying to regain his position of P3 going into turn 1. Has he got to try to do some sort of switchback going into turn 2? The moment does seem Poulin goes a bit wide there going to the edge of turn 1. That is going to cause Jamie Edwards to catch up, as well as what we do is see is that's going to be the tech behind him all over the rear. Jamie Edwards, that's going to be his priority. Now Jamie Edwards just not letting him get past. We do see there's a tiny bit of a mistake there from the tech, but it's not going to be enough for Jamie Edwards to still have a bit of a breather. Only about 5 tenths or so between them both. It looks a lot less than it already is, but we do already see Emmanuelson going into the pits, having their pit stop, as we do see all 3. Is there actually been 3 retirements from the race already? Or no, we do see Eckering is coming out of pit, obviously with the damage he has gained during that first lap incident. It does seem these 2 drivers have, I'm not sure if Munich has retired, but I believe Tommy has unfortunately retired from the race. But that is currently all we've got in terms of that, as we do see once again Ralph actually currently up into P14. Put a bit of pressure there on the unlucky number that Mickey Taylor is currently sat in P13. Towards that ahead of him as well, we do see that is going to be Chevelle trying to get past these positions as quickly as we possibly can. As we'll keep an eye out on where Chevelle is compared to where he will currently be. He's currently in P12. By the end of the race, I predict he might be able to probably get into the single digits, the higher single digits. His pace is pretty promising as he does lunge for the inside already. Going into turn 2, there's going to be a tiny bit of door rubbing between them both. It does seem Taron is able to get past quite swiftly. There's almost a pit maneuver there from Redhead as he does get up there into P11. Now trying to get past all of these cars as quickly as he can. There's no Gore in front of him. Still being in this quite close pack is going to make it relatively easy for Taron, who's probably got the better pace advantage than some of these drivers. So it's going to be a bit easy for him. It's going to be just basically like dominoes, just being able to get them pretty quickly within each other. Again, Bartek all over the rear of Jamie Edwards, but still not close enough to be able to go for a move. He might be able to gain a bit of time going into the final corner. It's currently Ferrari's going from P3 to P6, so a whopping 4 Ferraris there. It's quite a bit of time there to Jamie Edwards, but still not going to be enough to go for it. Now looks like he's trying to push for the inside line as quickly as he can. It's not going to work just yet for him either. So that seems to be a progressive loophole here for him. I keep seeing loophole. It's definitely not a loophole. It's definitely a loop that we're currently seeing him being stuck into. We've seen this pretty much every race so far as a driver. 2 drivers actually being very, very similar pace. if not the current driver in front being a tiny bit slower, but the driver ahead still being very, very quick, but also still very, very good at defending, which just leaves Bartek in a situation of being able to catch up. But then, obviously, with Jamie Edwards' defending skills, he does probably make a mistake, and that is going to lead to the gap decreasing again, and then it will increase again, etc., etc. What's going further down? Terence Bell now in the mid-pack of this. He's up into P11s. We do see him getting past Redhead earlier, as now he's putting pressure on Gore, but now because he's putting so much pressure on Gore, Redhead has been able to catch up once again, so there might be retaliation back from Redhead to try and get his position back after the move he made into turn 2. Uses a lot of the inside curb there going to turn 1 to try turn the car. If that was intentional, I am not sure, because it can be very risky, especially in those cars like the McLaren where they have the low ride heights. See him getting a bit loose there going into the end of turn 2. A car like the McLaren having such a low ride height and going through such a high curb like the inside curb of turn 1 can be relatively risky. If it bottoms out, you could fly in many different directions with ACC's physics at the moment. We do see now him being able to be in the slipstream now of Gore. He does seem to have the overspeed, but he's not going to be able to catch up quick enough, being on this relatively short straight going into turn 5, 6, and 7. Now once again, still being all over the rear of Gore, but again, this just shows you how hard it is to overtake a Brands Hatch. He does look for a move going into the penultimate corner. It does seem Gore is going to leave space and, well, almost hesitation. That's going to also lose him the position to Redhead. Can he actually maintain positions? There's going to be contact there between Redhead and Gore. Can Gore maintain his position in P11? No, he cannot. Mickey Taylor also get involved in this. It could get a bit rowdy here. Doesn't seem Gore's very happy there with Redhead. We do see Mickey Taylor now trying to get this move done going into turn 1, but doesn't have the overspeed as he's on the bottom of the banking, wherein that McLaren will bottom out and lose speed, as it does seem Redhead makes a tiny bit of a mistake going into turn 1, and that's going to leave Gore back in his position, but it doesn't seem these three drivers are very happy with one another. It does seem Mickey Taylor's more a passenger in this, but we do see Redhead's flashing back at Gore, which is meaning these two drivers aren't very happy with each other. Hopefully it stays civil for later, but it does seem Eklund's now all over the rear of Van Loo. He's actually been able to make quite a few positions here, Eklund, since the start of this race. So now he's all over the rear of Van Loo. Loses a bit of time because that Bentley's top end speed is pretty good there compared to that Aston Martin. So we do see a bit of flames there coming from the exhaust from the Aston Martin. Craig Hill is well looking to go all over the rear there of Kenneth Rees. It does seem it's going to be a BMW versus a BMW here. Exactly the same engineering. It's all going to be down to the setup and driver confidence around this track, as it does seem Craig Hill might be the advantage of both at the moment. Unless we can see Kenneth Reyes actually pull off something quite good here. I must say, I haven't actually seen Craig Hill's livery just yet, but I really do like it, to be honest. There's a lot of colours to it. It kind of looks quite retro-y, but it looks quite nice. I'm not really sure what it's representing. I can't see it for long enough to actually see what it's sponsoring or whatever it's trying to represent. Seems like an audio channel. Very nice livery there. Pat on the back there for Craig or whoever made it. Poor Craig. Mickey Taylor now being able to, well, now actually losing their position to Redhead, as it does seem, as we will get quick replay on that going into turn 2. That I'm assuming it's going to be the same move that we saw, I think it was Taron do. It's going to be the same place. A very good overtaking opportunity that going into turn 2, as we do see Redhead getting past Mickey Taylor once again for position. That's going to put him down into P13 now. Mickey Taylor and Redhead going into P12. Close is ready. It does seem everyone's actually came back out onto track here that we have seen earlier. It does seem Tommy Griffiths with his RTG hasn't been able to do his mandatory pit stop, putting himself 3 laps down. There's actually only a 26-second gap between 19 and 20 here, so it does seem obviously them being in the same boat. But Munich, who has done his mandatory pit stop, is going to put him in a better advantage in a better place than Tommy Griffiths for position. So that is also one thing to take into consideration between these two. I think he's just here for points at the end of the day. Back, I did just see though, I'm not sure who it was, but we do see there's going to be Sarah getting on the grass there. I'm not sure who that was who was in the grass originally. I assume that was, yeah, it must have been Basarius. We get a 30-second replay. It does seem he just spins, hit the wall there. Be quite a bit of damage there, unfortunately, to the back of that Ferrari 296. That's going to leave him going into the wall. He's in the danger zone now, very vulnerable to being hit by cars. He runs across the track there, almost taking out Mickey Taylor in the process of trying to rejoin. But he has managed to recover the car. He is going to have a lot of damage there to the back. So if he takes that repair going into the pits, we'll have to see. So we do see a few people going on into the pits now. We do see 3 people have taken. What has happened here? This is such a rare occurrence. Whoa. It seems P1 and P3 have set identical lap times, meaning we have now seen 2 people set purple laps. I'm actually going to take a photo of that. That's actually pretty cool. That is not every day you see that. But it does seem Weezer there in P1 and Poulian now in P3, both being able to set the identical lap time of 123.510, making them both purple lap time sitters. I don't think I've ever seen that in ACC before or in any sim racing game at all, so that is pretty cool to say the least. Now, a quarter of the way through this race, it seems we are starting to lose the battles, but this is always going to happen, especially around the track like Brands Hatch, where this is just prone to anything going to happen. Very, very difficult to overtake in certain areas, very narrow as well, and also probably not being a lot of people strong with the track. It's not used as often as it was originally when the British pack came out. I believe did this track come out in the British pack? No, this track didn't come out in the British pack, I believe. I think this was a default track in ACC when the game came out, I believe. Don't quote me on that. 43 minutes left to go. We do see Redhead actually being able to catch up with Jeremy Gore once again. These two a bit heated with one another already. They've had these battles before. It does seem Redhead does seem to be the faster driver so far, but in terms of last lap times, Jeremy Gore's saying a 124.575, but also Redhead saying a 124.697, so they're quite similar in terms of pace, about a tenth between them both. Now, I'm assuming Jeremy Gore might have made a bit of an incident earlier that's caused Redhead to catch up so quickly, it seems. Or it does seem Redhead might be a bit more consistent compared to Jeremy Gore, who seems to have the faster pace, but isn't necessarily as consistent as we do see Josh Redhead being able to do. Do you see what they set this lap time is going to be? Break here, I assume Redhead sets a faster lap time, as it is going to be a 124.475 here for Josh Redhead and a 124.725. I think there's actually quite a big pace difference now between them both, as we will stay on board with these two as they are the closest battles so far. Doesn't seem Josh Redhead is in any sort of rush to get by so far. In fact, he makes a tiny bit of a mistake there going into the end of turn 2. Seems a very, very prone place for people to make mistakes. Just getting on the throttle a bit too early, and that's going to cause them to, unfortunately, have a bit of an overseer moment and potentially even spin out or crash. But it does seem Redhead was able to get away pretty lucky, just being able to save the car. 41 minutes left to go now. We'll give you a bit of an update on what race report so far has been as we go, well, have just broken the border of the quarter mark of this race. But currently we do see Jean Weezer has taken the lead of this race from what was originally Daniel Trambaglio. That happened in the first few laps or so. Then followed by P2 of Daniel Trambaglio, who was originally in P1. Both of these having position swaps, but having a relatively calm race so far. But we haven't encountered traffic just yet, which is going to be probably a big factor during this race. Because obviously driving in clean air is one thing, but driving in traffic is another. And driving in traffic in such a narrow track like Brands Hatch can be, well, relatively sketchy to say the least, as we can actually see a few cars on the track map there. That is going into turn 4, so I believe they might be clean for at least the next 10 minutes or so, depending on how fast these people's pace are compared to what we see the rest of the grid being able to do. Daniel Trambaglio at the moment not actually being able to gain too much time to his opponent of Weezer, but he did gain that on the final lap, as we just saw, of 123.8 from Weezer and then a 123.767 by Daniel Trambaglio. So two cars relatively similar pace. I assume that might have been an anomalous lap from Weezer, but we might be able to see Daniel Trambaglio actually making a bit of a redemption, trying to get past the Bentley of Weezer once again for position. Then in P3 we do see Poulian currently also matching the fastest lap time with that 123 we saw earlier, with Weezer both having those purple lap times. That isn't a bug, that is because they have set identical fastest lap times. Followed then by Jamie Edwards of P4, who's under a bit of pressure, as we can see from the tech. Reddick Wicks both in the Ferrari 296. Seems Ferrari's dominating a bit here. Doesn't seem we see that many McLarens this time around. Same with, well, obviously some of the other cars, but it has become more and more diverse, the grid so far, in terms of brands and companies being able to be quite competitive with the BOP supplied. Followed then by Kenneth Reyes in the Road Racing BMW M4, currently P6 there. Followed then by Matthew Reynolds, who's under a lot of pressure here from Chabelle, who has been on fire during this race, unfortunately, in two different ways. Actually being able to gain quite a few positions, but he has been unfortunate enough to be involved in the first accident, I believe, and then having a spin about 10 minutes later, which put him down into P12. But he's trying to make a redemption once again, as it looks like he's trying to make a move going into turn 1. He does make it nice and swiftly there. Is there going to be any sort of... No, there's going to be no sort of retaliation here from Matthew Reynolds. He goes on the sketchy part of the track, the outside, into turn 1, where there's going to be no grip, as we could see Matthew Reynolds struggling to keep that car in a straight line, but is able to still stay alive, currently in P8. What's that now? Van Loo currently in P13, looking to attack Mickey Taylor a tiny bit for position. Van Loo having quite a good race so far, gaining about 7 positions since the start of this race. We have had a disconnect, it seems. I'm not sure who it was who has disconnected, but it has been someone. Whoa, what's just happened there? That almost looks like they just followed the same line with each other. It seems Mickey Taylor following, well, actually in the lead of this, and just probably saying a role for what Mickey's line should be and Ralph's line should be, and it does seem Mickey making a tiny bit of a mistake there, and that's going to lead both Mickey Taylor and Bundy to lose positions and a lot of time and tyre wear there to the rest of the field as we go near to the halfway mark of this race so far. Josh Redhead now, P10, looking to put a bit of pressure there on Jeremy Gore once again for P9. Again, I've mentioned this before, not sure if it was the same drivers, but this loop that's starting to be present once again. Following on, but it does seem now it's actually good. What has happened there? That's going to cause Daniel Trambago to regain a lead. We do see Weezer here having still quite a clear advantage compared to the two. It does seem he just takes a tiny bit of the grass there going into turn 6. Was able to save the car there, but he wasn't able to save his position to P1. This could make the lead looking a bit interesting now for the rest of the race. Now, it does seem there's going to be a 3/10 gap now between P1 and P2. So you do see if these two battle too much, there is still not that big of a gap between P1, P2 and P3. In fact, though, Puna makes a mistake, it seems. Now, it does seem these two are going to be battling at it. But Tech now going in the inside line, going into turn 2, gets the move done relatively simply. But it does seem he goes a bit wide, almost losing the advantage that he had going into turn 2. He does gain the podium step there. As well as that, now we do actually see Chabal getting closer to raise that. Oh my days, Taryn. I just saw that because obviously I'm just trying to preserve my voice a tiny bit. That did just seem... He almost saved it, but he overcorrected himself, and that just caused him to obviously lose that position. Taron now going down into P7, but it does seem he might be able to still have... Well, still a load of time to be able to, well, regain the positions he has lost. But currently my prediction, he is on chart for probably about P5 if he's able to catch up in time. But the same P2 and 5 being able to set those fastest lap times might be a bit of an issue there for Taron. In terms of the battle for the lead here, the little mistake that Weezer made could be a bit of a blessing here for Trimbaglios. Now, Trimbaglios has actually been able to create about a 1.2 second gap for himself, going into 20th a lap now. Just now Gore going into the pits. We do see this is when most people will start to pit. This hopefully will make it a bit more interesting in terms of gaps starting to close, the undercut starting to potentially work for some drivers who have pitted previously due to many different reasons probably. But now we do see, now this is going to be Taron and Gore both coming into the pits to potentially pit for tyres or just do the strategy of fuel. Now what we do see, this is going to be Jamie Edwards potentially losing his position of P4 to Poulin, but Poulin goes into the pits to potentially try undercut Jamie Edwards, who we did see was under quite a bit of pressure there from Poulin, so it could potentially work there, the undercut, if he nails his pit stops and we see Jamie Edwards potentially making a tiny bit of a mistake for his pit. We are back once again after just trying to preserve my voice once again, but we do see, which you probably saw before me, but Daniel Trambaglio unfortunately not having the best of races again. Unfortunately getting a stop-go 30 penalty for speeding in the pit lanes. I can only assume his pit limiter might have deactivated in the pit. Very unfortunate scenario if you're stuck in that scenario, but unfortunately that does sometimes happen. Just under a quarter of this race left to go now. 23 minutes left to go, as we only see there's only one battle left on track, and it's between Jeremy Gore and Joshua Redhead. Once again, these two drivers have been at it all over themselves practically the entire race so far now. Jeremy Gore now having to try, can he actually be able to stick defensive for 23 minutes from Joshua? But Joshua does seem to once again be that fast driver, but as I've mentioned that leap before, his consistency might not be as good as Jeremy Gore. That's what we now do see. It does seem Redhead being able to gain back once again, but it's still not going to be a lot of time to Jeremy Gore. 22 minutes left to go. At this rate, Jeremy Gore might be able to withstand the pressure of Joshua Redhead behind them. Both of them have pitted. Only one person who haven't pitted so far, and that is Tommy Griffiths, who has now went into the pit. Does seem he is starting to lose a tiny bit of time there. Joshua Redhead to Jeremy Gore, but it's still very minimal. How much is he losing? Just 19 minutes left to go, roughly, going into the team digits now. Redhead still gaining time. 3 attempts between Jeremy Gore and Redhead now. But a tiny bit of a mistake there from Jeremy Gore going into turn 4 is going to lead Redhead to be all over the rear of him once again. Let's see how much time he's actually gaining into sector 3 now. Once again, just a bit of an update on what's happening between these two. Let's see now, Jeremy Gore, under more pressure than ever at the moment, is still being able to maintain about that 3/10 gap between P8 and P9. But for how long at the moment, it does seem Jeremy Gore's still being able to stay under pressure pretty nicely. But Redhead's starting to creep in every lap or so now. Here we go, starting to create a gap once again between them both. As we now see, it's actually could potentially turn into a freeway train here, as we can actually see that's going to be Matthew Reynolds in the distance, which can actually throw a humongous spanner into the works for this race between these three, because obviously Jeremy Gore now being in the middle is kind of one of the more limiting spaces here compared to what we do see Redhead and Matthew Reynolds being in. But if Jeremy Gore is starting to reel in another driver like Matthew, who's been in clean air after still being under immense amount of pressure from Redhead's behind, it does potentially mean he might be able to create such a lot of, or a humongous gap now between the rest of the field behind him, but also try and reel in the drivers in front of him. But we do see Jeremy Gore makes a tiny bit of mistake there, and that's going to cause Redhead to look for the opportunity to get by going into turn 4, and he's able to go through with 15 minutes left to go, and he's been battling for about 30 minutes now between them both. And now that is going to be 15 minutes left to go. Jeremy Gore going down into P9, and we do see Redhead going into P8. As we do actually see now that's going to be Matthew Reynolds making a tiny bit of a mistake, but he still is able to maintain his P7 position at the moment. Whoa, what the hell? That was a bit risky in my opinion. Redhead making a humongous lunge on Matthew Reynolds' 4 position going into turn 1. That was very, very risky and a tiny bit idiotic in my opinion. As we do see, there's going to be contact there between Matthew Reynolds and that's going to be Gore, but it seems Gore waits for Matthew Reynolds, which I do highly respect that, as they both stay in the same positions they originally were in. But I do respect Gore highly for that, so pat on the back there for him. But he goes for a barrel once again going into turn 4. He gets the move done that nice and fair going into turn 4. Is there going to be retaliation here from Matthew Reynolds? He's all over the rear of him now, going into this mini straight, going into sector 2, sector 3. He's not going to be able to get any sort of move done on him just yet. Matthew Reynolds actually starting to reel a gap once again on Jeremy Gore for position, but it's still not going to be a lot of time. However, we do see Mickey Taylor all over the back of Craig Hill now going into turn 4. He forces himself a gap there going into turn 4, but it's not going to work just yet for him. You see Craig Hill might suffer in terms of top end speed now, but it's not going to be an issue just yet for him. What does that now? Daniel Trambaglio starting to make his redemption arc once again. Trying to get past Ralph and Lou for position number 13. Going into the penultimate corner. Taylor now putting pressure on Craig Hill for positions. They go side by side now, go into the final corner. Craig Hill having the inside line, but is there going to be a switch back from Mickey Taylor? Yes, there is. Is it going to work? Doesn't seem the overspeed is going to happen for him, and especially with him having the inside part of the banking, where the McLaren is going to be a tiny bit under, bit of a disadvantage with the lower ride height he currently has, with that McLaren going under the bumps you see on the banking of the start for this straight is going to eliminate a lot of his momentum due to the bottoming out. But now there is going to be a gap starting to increase between them both, going into 8 minutes left of this race. Now we do see now Taron putting a bit of pressure now on Kenneth Ray's 4 position. So as we almost saw Daniel Trambaglio going past that. So I almost saw it to be a tiny bit of an issue there. So I'm not sure what's happened there. Did he stall the car? I think he stalled the car there. It does seem he stalled the car, actually. Did he stall the car, or has he given... I think he just gave the position back to Ralph, so I'm assuming there was some sort of issue between them both, and Daniel Trambaglio might have saw himself in the wrong, I believe. I could be completely wrong now. Daniel Trambaglio once again all over the rear of Craig Hill of his BMW M4. 7 minutes left to go. Can we see Craig Hill maintain P11 in that 888 BMW M4, or will we see Mickey Taylor in the 197 McLaren 729? Yes, Evo take P11 here for round 3 at Brands Hatch here for the Intermediate A Championship at Formula Racing League. Does seem he's going to fall behind a tiny bit there. Craig Hill, but is able to still stay in P11. But we do see now Mickey Taylor might be able to go for the outside line going into turn 5 there. But at the moment it's not going to work for him. He just has to tuck behind once again and wait for another opportunity to strike. Going through sector 3 is probably the most dangerous and risky way of going for a move, especially going into turn 6 and 7. Being 2 of the most technical corners, as I mentioned earlier, and if you just go a tiny bit wide, especially as we can see here for an example, obviously you have the, I'm not sure what really it is, but it's almost like an artificial curb on the outside line area of turn 6, but that isn't the case for turn 7, and if you just go a tiny bit too wide, you're going on the grass there, and luckily with ACT having the better physics when you have a bit of interference with grass, you don't automatically get pulled inside to the grass compared to what we see with AMS2 or iRacing, but it's still quite bad, as we do see there's still a significant impact on when you do touch the grass from a tyre perspective, and obviously from a gap perspective and a performance perspective. So that now it doesn't seem he's going to be able to defend it here. Craig Hill going into turn 6 and 7, 2 risky places. We can see Craig Hill running out of room there, and that's going to cause Mickey Taylor to go up into P11 for the final 4 minutes here of racing. But it does seem he goes wide going into turn 7 now, and that's going to cause Craig Hill to regain his position of P11. And now there's actually going to be quite a hefty gap between P11 and 12, so this might be able to maintain Craig's position of P11 unless we see either a mistake from Craig to be present, or if Mickey Taylor just has supercharged pace compared to Craig Hill. But at the moment I'm not sure if that's going to be realistic at the moment. So they have been battling for some time. About 2 laps left of racing here, depending on where Bijan is on track. At the moment, it does seem he's just coming into what seems to be the final few corners, I believe. Comes on to the final little streak before the final corner here, as it's going to officially be, I believe, potentially 2 or 3 laps left of racing here. Bijan now still in the lead with about a 5-second gap between them both, which is still quite a small gap for an hour race. So as that now, we do see the top three so far is going to be Bjorn Weezer in P1, followed then by Poulin in P2, followed then by Batek, Rediswix in P3. So still actually quite a close grid between them three. In fact, it does seem Poulin was able to pull about a second or two there on Weezer. So Weezer needs to be a tiny bit careful here on what he is going to do. Poulin now being able start to close the gap in, but it's not going to be enough time there. And then Radix with only 1.8 seconds behind P2, so in total about 5 seconds gap difference between P1 and P3. So thinking about that, that is still brilliant to see. I believe actually because I think Weezer's actually trying to lift and coast a tiny bit so he doesn't have to do an extra lap after this, which I believe he still might have to do depending on what his pace is going to be this lap. As he comes across the line now to set his final... No, it's not going to be the final lap, depending on... actually, it could potentially be the final lap with like a second or so to spare. Or actually, it might be the other way around. Sorry, that wasn't English. I mean, it could be the final lap, or there could be a second or so to spare. Go on to the final corner. But I believe this could potentially be the final lap. As he does have a 2.4 second gap, so he could lift and coast a tiny bit. So do you see that's going to be Ralph going on the grass there, going into the final corner, I believe. That's going to be turn 6 and 7, actually. That's going to be Daniel Chambaglia regaining the position of P13. There onto the final lap or so of the race. 30 seconds left to go. You do see now Weezer going through what is going to be turn 6 and 7. 20 seconds left to go. 2 corners left to go. It's going to be really close yet. He has been able to gain about a second there, so I'm assuming he might try to do something going on to the final lap. If he's going to do another lap, then we'll see. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's going to be the checkered flag on the final second. Now that is pretty satisfying to say the least. We do see Poulin take a P2, then followed by Rediswix, and then it's going to be Jamie Edwards quite far behind the rest of the field. Then there's actually quite a big gap now between P4 and 5 as well. So we do see Jamie Edwards now going across the line to take P4, followed then by what is going to be Kenneth Reyes as well, under a bit of pressure there from Tarrant, who's also ahead. Once again, Tarrant actually going up into P6 since the 2 mistakes he's made during today's race, but brilliant performance there from Tarrant, then followed then by Joshua Redhead in the open lobby racing. Mercedes livery coming through the final corner and to start finish straight. Take P7, then followed quite closely now between Jeremy Gore and Matthew Reynolds taking P7 and P8 and 9. Followed then as well by Basari taking P10. So there's Craig Hill and Mickey Taylor. Daniel Chambaglia being one of the final people to cross the line. Van Loo actually being the final person to cross the line, it seems, in that Bentley Continental to take P14. Then last but not least, Tommy Griffiths now coming across the start-finish line. Is he going to go across this? Has he run out of fuel? He ran out of fuel on the line. I must say that is relatively clean. I'm going to wrap it here. I apologise once again if stream was a tiny bit scuffed. I am genuinely suffering from sickness, it seems. But I will hopefully see you at Monza next race, which is going to be a week from now. So it's going to be the 9th of May. But for the 90-minute race. But for now, I have been your commentator, Alex Newman, also known as Aces.